Hi everyone, and welcome to my week 5 presentation for MPA 545. Let's get started. So what we're going to be talking about today is going to be, first off, public unions, public sector unions. The union that I chose, the one that I'm currently associated with, which is the California Police Officers Association. We're then going to talk about kind of like case law, I guess. That's kind of how I use the terminology when it comes to a union and a member from the union. And then we're going to talk about a peer-reviewed journal associated with public sector unions. And then the Wisconsin Act 10 bill from 2011. So public sector unions, some that I know of would be California Police Officers Association Union, Highway Patrol Union. There's even a union for teachers in that regard. But the one that I use, and because I'm currently a police officer, I use the California Police Officers Association, or we call it the POA. It's based in California. It's specifically for law enforcement or police officers. And the union is specific for the contracts between wages, benefits, city terms, and so on and so forth. And it just kind of narrows down to what the people are asking for, and the union goes to the city or whoever to pitch, we need higher pay, we need better benefits, we need this, we need that. So that's kind of what the purpose of the public sector union is in regards to, obviously, my union that I'm currently in. So it's super interesting. I didn't know about this case law per se, and it has to do with the fact of government workers, which that is what I am. I'm a state government worker, that we're not required to pay union fees as a condition for working. We get to choose if we want to be a part of the union or not, and it's pretty interesting when you kind of dig a little bit deeper and you read this case law. It was a huge victory for them, especially the First Amendment rights to choose what we wanted, in a sense. And it was for non-union government workers, and they weren't required to have to pay union fees as a condition of their working in public service. So it was super interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it, reading the case law in regards to it, or the ruling for that matter. And yeah, so let's go to the next slide. So the peer-reviewed journal that I selected was Interest Groups, Local Politics and Police Unions by Daniel DiSlavo, and I referenced it over in the next little on the side over here. And in regards to this specific article that I pulled up, it was really interesting because it talks about how the police unions raise great issues of great importance for political scientists, and how they can navigate the interest groups, how it's empowered by the state collective bargaining laws. It involves local players and important players in local politics and shapers for the criminal justice system itself. And what's super important about the police unions is that it's an interest group that's examined very thoroughly. And in order for police officers to ask for a raise, ask for better benefits, or any of these types of things, they have to go to city. So that's why we tend to our union tends to fight for us in that regard, and tends to persuade the benefits of why we need better pay, better benefits, bringing in more officers, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what this article is about, because it talks about the George Floyd death in Minneapolis in the summer of 2020. This article was published in 2022, which is really interesting to read. And it talks about the the regard of law enforcement and how politics tie in and how the community views police and politics and all that kind of stuff. And it's really interesting to see how the public sector of it, even though it's a state government, entity, the public has such a huge say and such a persuasion on the city government in regards to if the police are getting defunded, if they need more funding, if they need more officers, if they're doing the correct benefits for them, because in a sense it's taxpayers' dollars, and that's why we have certain measures like Measure S, Measure Z, all that kind of stuff that we have obviously here in certain cities, and depending on what city you live in, it could be different. So it's really interesting to kind of read and learn about it, which I hope you guys take the time to look into the peer-reviewed journal that I selected, because it was really insightful, especially me being an officer and kind of just learning how to navigate through that and understand from a different perspective. So next we're going to be talking about the 2011 Wisconsin Act 10 bill. Act 10 exempts police and other public safety workers from collective bargaining limitations placed on other public employees. So I chose the news story from Channel 6 News, and it was really interesting what they were talking about, because when looking at it and reading it, there was a lawsuit that just came up in regards to this specific act because of a union and an employee, and how it, like, the limitations of bargaining and persuasion and trying to collectively come up with a common thing for everybody to be on the same page. And when listening to or reading the Fox News article and watching what they kind of had to say, it made sense, because essentially this act saved taxpayer dollars and made it to where taxpayers weren't having to come out so much taxes in regards to helping the law enforcement or police or whoever in that public sector in those unions to have dues being paid and all that kind of stuff. It saved, like, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like $16.1 million for taxpayers' purposes. So it was pretty hefty numbers, which was nice to see. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I speak very eccentrically when it comes to law enforcement, and obviously kind of very highly because I am an officer. And a lot of the stuff that we are learning is very informational for me, and coming from that type of background, it brings a different perspective to a lot of things and brings some things to light of, I didn't know this happened, or I didn't know what that was, and that's super informational and that's super interesting. So then I ask somebody else about it if they knew about it, and it's really cool to kind of see the shift of business perspective, law enforcement perspective, and trying to see what the collective bargaining unit is for the union and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you guys have a good week.